What's up, friends? Today we are here with a brand new wheel video, and yes, it has been quite a while since I recorded one of these, but today we're here on the Cloudwheel Galaxy 105s, and these wheels are quite interesting. If you have taken a look at the product page for these, you might have seen them on Instagram or whatever. They will remind you quite a bit of another wheel, the Boosted 105. Now, the Boosted 105 is now defunct as far as the Boosted name goes. Technically, you can still get them from the Boosted guys, I believe, with the original coloring, but the more popular one nowadays is the Madwheels 105, which is basically just a Boosted 105. There is now a Madwheels V2, which is a bit wider, but this is similar to the V1, aka the exact same as the Boosted 105 urethane wheel. Now, these wheels are also urethane, 100% urethane. In fact, they do not have any Cloudwheel tech in them or any kind of foam or rubber on the outside like some other wheels do. These are a pure urethane wheel, but they do have that unique hole molding that the Mad 105s slash Boosted 105s have, and that gives them a little bit more shock absorption ability and gives you a little bit of a different ride feel than without the holes in the back. Now, I believe that combination of holes and urethane is a really great way to split the difference between having a wheel that doesn't get you as much range because it's so busy absorbing shocks, aka a really soft rubber wheel like the Onza 115s, and a hard urethane wheel that gives you really good range and does okay on shock absorption. And interestingly enough, the wheels that come on the Meepo Envy, which is what I'm riding today, by default are actually quite good urethane. They're 90mm urethane. They call them the Meepo Sentry wheels, I believe. And they're pretty nice. They're honestly very good at shock absorption, and they're fairly grippy for urethane. But I've always been of the opinion that the Mad 105s slash Boosted 105 style gets you more effective grip due to its ability to absorb shock and the slight increase in width over some of the other smaller urethane wheels. Now, we'll just stop for a second. On these Galaxy wheels, these are actually the Galaxy Pros. They have two versions, the Galaxy 105 and the Galaxy 105 Pro. The Pros here have this unique tread pattern on them. And this tread pattern might remind you of something. Some people may know of the Harfang urethane wheels. I'll put a pic on screen of those. But basically, it was just normal urethane wheels with a tread pattern kind of CNC'd into it. And this seems to be the exact same idea. Now, these tread patterns on here, I believe, are probably just CNC'd in here with a lathe because they already make the 105 wheel, so it just makes more sense to have the tread pattern cut into it rather than having two molds. Also, it'd be pretty hard to demold these with the tread pattern on there, so my assumption is that it is cut into it. And along with it being cut into it, I believe it's actually backfilled or at least coated with some sort of epoxy or resin or something. It might even just be clear urethane, but you actually get a really shiny surface on the inside of the treads of these wheels out of the box. Now, of course, it won't be shiny anymore as soon as you go for your first ride and as soon as you go onto any kind of gravel or anything like that, but you can tell that that was not the same surface quality as the outside of the wheel when you pull it out of the box. Now, we're going to talk about a couple things on this first ride video, not to make it too long, but first we'll talk about shock absorption. Second, we'll talk about rolling resistance or perceived rolling resistance. And then third, we'll talk about grip. So first off, shock absorption on these wheels seems to be pretty decent so far, but it doesn't really seem to be spectacular. It's not going to compare to the Onsra 115 wheels, and it might not compare to the Rover 115s. And if you recall, the Rover 115s are Cloudwheel's newer design of rubber wrapped around a urethane core that has foam inside of it. And that will definitely give you more of a shock absorbing ride than these. And man, we're going 30 miles an hour right now. But at the same time, these have felt pretty good so far, and they do seem to absorb shock well. However, honestly, if we're nitpicking, I don't really think that they provide a huge amount more shock absorption than the default Meepo 90mm wheels. And honestly, that is in part due to how good those wheels are. They're not bad. And when we talk about older, cheap urethane wheels, the wheels of today, the Meepo 90mm ones, the X-Way ones, even the Wowgo ones, all the urethane formulas seem to be much softer and more pleasant to ride on than they used to be back in the day. So those are all good things to know. So yeah, initial impressions, of course I'm going to have to ride these for a bit longer before I can give final thoughts, but it seems like shock absorption is alright, but it's nothing spectacular. So right off the bat, I feel like the immediate benefit that you're going to be getting with these over urethane standard is just that you have a little bit more grip due to the tread pattern, and it's a little bit more resilient to water, if I had to guess. And that's because these grooves should be able to reject that water out of the wheel more effectively than a flat urethane wheel. And if you recall, in my X-Way Hydro video, I did ride through a bunch of water, and you could see how the splash pattern of the water changed of the flat urethane wheels versus the hydros with that extra rubber layer on the outside. So those are two benefits I can think of off the bat. But next, let's talk about perceived rolling resistance for a second. Now, rolling resistance is kind of a weird one because you could technically test it with real numbers, which I might be able to do one day, but I just don't have time for that right now. So really, we're just kind of going off of ride feel. And the thing is, when you switch to bigger wheels like this, these are 105 versus the 90 mils that come on this board by default. Ideally, you're going to switch the gear ratio. And for me, when I went and selected these wheels, I got the gear ratio of 40 teeth on the wheel pulley, and the standard, I think it's 15 on the motor pulley. And with that combination, we're able to keep the same top speed about, let me test it real quick. Yeah, with that combination, we're still able to go up to 32 miles an hour, which is pretty close to the 33 mile an hour rated top speed of the NV. So when you're selecting your gear ratio, you can pick whatever you think suits you. You can get a ratio that makes you go faster. You can get a ratio that makes you keep the same amount of torque. But for me, this combination pretty much is pretty close to the same effective gear ratio at the end of the day. So I thought that this would be a good ratio to test, and it feels pretty much the same as the stock board so far. I don't really have any kind of loss of braking power. I'm still able to basically skid the wheels, and acceleration still feels great. So I went for that ratio, and if you go onto the Cloudwheel website, you'll see that there are tons of different pulleys you can select, and they pretty much support most boards that you can think of, including the X-Way Flex Pro, the Meepo NV, and so on. So make sure to select the board that you're using and select the gear ratio that you want. Now, while we're carving around in this parking lot, let's talk a little bit about grip and my first impressions on that. And my first impressions on grip are that they honestly feel pretty similar to urethane, but with a little bit more bite. And what I mean by that is that you might be able to hear it a little bit. but it feels like instead of just one edge gripping, you're getting a little bit more from those grooves that are cut into the wheel. And it feels pretty dang good. Now, I haven't been riding a lot of urethane recently, or rubber. In fact, I've just been riding pneumatic tires and racing on my race board. So I'm a little bit out of touch with how urethane wheels are supposed to feel, besides the couple of rides that I've done on the 90mm default wheels on both the Envy here and the Wowgo 3E. So overall, this feels pretty good, to be honest, but I don't really think that you're going to be experiencing something completely unique with these wheels. I think that they are a marginal improvement on stock urethane. I think they do look fairly cool. Obviously, everyone is entitled to have their own opinion about the styling of these wheels. I think that the purple color is the coolest one, and I was hoping that I would get the purple color when I requested these from Cloudwheel. Thank you guys for sending them out, by the way. Awesome wheels. I think it'd be great for me to get 100 miles in on these and see how they compare to the Madwheels, since they're nearly the same thing. But anyway, I think the purple color is really cool for some people, and I think the green color would actually go really well with the Meepo Envy. Now, as I'm riding these a bit more, I actually do think the shock absorption is a little better than I first gave it credit for. It seems like on bigger shocks, like these manhole covers, it is doing a good bit of shock absorption and kind of taking out a little bit of that initial bump. Now, the deck, of course, is helping a lot here as well, so let's not act like it isn't flexing a whole ton, but not bad at all. All right, I'm going to take a little bit more footage, and then I'll come back and give you guys any further thoughts that I have. All right, so one thing that I just noticed about these wheels that's a little different than the Madwheels is that some people complain about the noise of the Madwheels, which is kind of like the whirring slash vibrating sound that they get from the holes that are in the back of the wheel. And to be honest, I'm not really noticing that very much on these wheels. I think that has something to do with the urethane formula. And to be honest, when I first pulled these out of the box, I squished them a little bit, and I think that Madwheels have a softer urethane formula. It could just be me imagining it, and when we actually do like full review on these, which I think I'm going to do, I will pull out the durometer tester and we'll compare them directly. But I think it has something to do with this slightly harder perceived urethane formula on these wheels, that they're not deflecting as much and making noise when you ride on the street. And honestly, the noise that the Madwheels makes never bothered me in the first place, so I don't really care. But if that really bothered you, you might find a more pleasurable experience here with the lack of that sort of whirring, vibrating sound. And I don't notice any vibration at all coming through the deck, which is something that some people complained about as well with the Madwheels slash, you know, whoever else makes them now, Boosted, etc. One thing I will mention here, as I've gotten a few more miles on these have a nice curved edge on each side of the wheel, and that might not seem like a big deal to some people, but for me, with the Dad Bod 105 wheels, which I swear I'll get a review out on those soon. My other board was down and I wasn't able to get all the miles in that I wanted to, so hopefully I'll be able to do that soon. But one thing I noticed about the Dad Bod wheels is with their sharp edges, I was getting a lot of edge catches on straight street formations like this paint line, or straight street cracks like this one, stuff like that. I would feel my edges of the wheel start to track along that. And that can be really jarring if you're not prepared for that, or if you're not on stable footing. So something to look out for. But with these wheels, I haven't really felt that at all, and I think that is just due to the fact that they have curved edges. And that's the same on the Madwheels. You don't experience that kind of tracking effect there either. So just a couple more facts there, but other than that, I think that's pretty much all that I'm going to cover for this first ride. So I'll record a little bit more footage, and then I'll do a little outro, and I will probably do a range test on these as soon as I get my other board back up and running, see what kind of watt hours per mile they pull, especially compared to those Mad 105 wheels. Alright, so we're cruising at top speed right now, 28 miles an hour at this current battery state. We're 2 bars down. And just a little short summary on these wheels. Out of the first like 6 miles that I've ridden so far, I don't really have any major complaints at all. They feel pretty nice. The grip feels good for a urethane wheel, but at the end of the day, I think that these are going to provide a very similar experience to Mad 105s, and I think that you might only experience a little bit of difference with those grooves if you're riding on damp roads, which I never recommend doing. So thank you for watching this video. Hopefully you found this first impression interesting. I am going to attempt to do a full review on these wheels, time allowing. We'll see what happens, but yeah, pretty good. Thank you so much to Cloudwheel for sending these over, and let me know if you guys have any questions about these down in the comments, and I will try to answer them as best as possible. See you later. Stay safe, keep on riding, and peace out.